好啦，咁跟住落嚟呢，我哋嘅台面呢都已經準備好啦，因為我哋跟住呢就要邀請幾位嘅嘉賓上台呢，同我哋用唔同嘅角度一齊去探討一下佢哋嘅所見啦，同埋呢個人管理資產嘅趨勢。從而咧喺佢哋嘅角度同我哋咧一齊睇下 Web3 嘅發展嘅。So for the next part, we will be introducing and inviting a few industry experts to the stage and share with us how this Web2 to Web3 transition and what are the opportunities and challenges and how to tackle problems from their point of view. So before I invite the panelists on stage, I would like to invite Mr. Kavi, Harilela to come back on stage to be our host of this panel discussion. And now let's welcome me and joining on stage our panelists for the discussion today, and they are Julia Charlton, Principal Partner of Charltons. Let's give her a big hand of applause. Mr. Bosco Lin, Board Advisor, AUDD.Digital. Mr. Jason Magnus, co-founder, Khronos Holdings and Metamatic Group. And last but not the least, joining us on stage is Mr. Eugene Yeung, partner tax of KPMG. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarita. And thank you once again, panelists. Appreciate you all coming here today. I would like to start off by requesting everyone to answer one general question. But before they answer the general question, I'd like to give a brief introduction about yourself before you answer it. And we'll go from this side to that side, if that's okay. So the general question that I have are, what are the challenges and opportunities for Web3 development in Hong Kong? Can you talk about it from your own perspective?
I'm Julia Charlton. I'm a Hong Kong lawyer doing corporate finance and securities law, which is how I got into crypto and blockchain advice about 7 years ago. And what are the challenges? Well, and opportunities? Well, I think there's great impetus from the government, very, very welcome statements about how Hong Kong is going to grow into a crypto hub, etc. And there's going to be great support for all of this. Even the HKMA are being asked to facilitate bank opening and so on. But I do think that there remains a big mismatch between the energy in this market, which could be seen from the numerous unregulated crypto exchanges prior to the regulation which came into effect from June this year. So we have this enormous sort of gap of our regulation. We have these very relatively over-regulated areas in the crypto world, and then we have unregulated areas. And a lot of people in crypto no longer want it to be completely unregulated. They want to know it's regulated, but they want sensible and efficient and clear regulations so that they don't have problems with bank accounts and with dealing with their customers and so on. So we still have a huge gap in all of that. And I also think that the regulators for all of this sort of rhetoric are actually not clear a lot of the time about what they really want people to do in the market. There's no very open dialogue. We still haven't had, for example, tokenization offerings, being able to file unlisted prospectuses and so on. The law's been there for years. In the US, securities offerings, if a crypto product is deemed to be a security, it can be filed and registered. That hasn't happened yet in Hong Kong, although the law exists. So I do think that we need an awful lot more efficiency, clarity, and real dialogue so that we can match the real world and the regulatory world and really put them together to move forward, because there's some wonderful startups, scale-ups, so much energy in this market, and we could attract even more people. We've heard about all the advantages of Hong Kong from Kavi, and we all know about them. So, if we had perhaps some more clarity around that, and especially around banking and how to bank, that would be amazingly helpful to actually really make this market boom.
Thank you. Bosco?
Hi, I'm Bosco Lin. I'm an advisor of a stable coin, Australian dollar stable coin called AUDD. So before that, I was one of the co-founding members of Alipay in Hong Kong. So my background is very much from the payment side as well. So I think in general, Hong Kong people are very eager to learn. Younger generation is very tech savvy. And in the past 2 years, we learned a lot more about crypto, Web3, and blockchain stuff. Unfortunately, there are some bad things happen as well, including the collapse of FTX, and also more recently the JPEX incident. But I think the challenge here is how the government or regulators all around the world trying to restore the confidence from the public side. And it is very good to see the Hong Kong government as well as some other regulators and is trying to do taking a more embracing approach to help individuals to understand more what they are trying to do to embracing this tech and opportunities around that instead of distancing themselves from this new technology and this kind of like opportunities. So I'm very positive that Hong Kong will continue to grow and to support the development in this Web3 space.
Thank you. And Jason?
Jason Magnus. I run a family office. I'm without doubt the most TradFi person on this stage. We're predominantly in real estate. I recently made my first investment in Web3 2 months ago, backing a consumer token-focused Web3 fund. In the past, I founded one of the world's first search engines back in 1999, so giving away my age there. I think, look, I'm going to echo a lot of what was already said. I think Hong Kong has the most fantastic foundation in traditional finance. And if we can shift some of this goodwill and trust into Web3, it would lend Web3 certainly a lot of legitimacy in the city. Obviously, the government's embrace, good to see, but the financial institutions, they have to follow suit, which they haven't. Personally, I know of a couple of FinTech companies who couldn't even open something as simple as a local fiat bank account because they have a very slight focus on digital assets. So actually, if somehow we can convert the government's Web3 aspirations into some sort of regulatory clarity, I think we will see financial institutions onboard digital assets, and in turn, investor sentiment embrace it in the same way. Because there's a lot of talk about Hong Kong becoming the Web3 hub of Asia. It has everything it needs, but I think it needs that sort of trident to work together.
Thank you. And Eugene?
Hi, everyone. I'm Eugene Young, a KPMG tax partner, and I specialize in TMT, new economy, and also including crypto or digital asset space. Speaking of this role, is actually a good job because there are actually no or very limited tax rules around crypto or digital assets, so it is good. But this also come with some risk or some uncertainties because the big question you will ask is, well, if I trade crypto, whether I need to pay tax in Hong Kong, then we wouldn't, well, the first step may be to define whether what is it, asset or is it a right, etc. So I don't want to go into that kind of details, which will bore you. But my point is, without regulations, as Julie said, it may be a good thing or maybe a bad thing because there are something that you think you are doing the right thing, but 3 months later or 1 year later, you may be caught. My another role in the Hong Kong Institute of CPAs, I write a budget proposal to the government every year, to the Financial Secretary, about the government budget. So in these few years, we do advocate and we do propose the government to look into this space and try to come up with more uncertainties and rules. These can be opportunities as well, because if we sort of come later in the region, the government or as a city, we learn from the others' lessons, and we don't need to repeat the things that the other cities or the other groups of peoples have done.
Thank you. Well, it seems like there's a huge consensus that Hong Kong is the place. Seems like there's a consensus here that we have everything needed. We just now need to take the step further and get the right regulations and right guidance and create that dialogue with the government to now proceed to the next point. I think from this point now, let's go to individual questions. I think my first one will be to Julia. We've seen there are some incidents in Hong Kong due to people's lack of legal awareness. Can you share with us why some professional opinions regarding on-off ramp difficulties amid the bank restrictions? What should we pay attention to, especially after JPEG's incident?
Thanks, Kavi. I guess on-off ramp means we're going from fiat to crypto and back to fiat, right?
Correct.
So that's really a difficult area because I think, as we just heard alluded to, sometimes you can't even open an account for a FinTech company because they have some involvement in crypto. So how do you get between crypto and fiat? How do you get between the two and bridge the gap? And that does seem to be quite difficult in Hong Kong. And certainly what people would tend to do is possibly change fiat overseas into crypto and then remit it back to Hong Kong. And given how flexible the crypto world is and how crypto can move across jurisdictions, it really is a very kind of spurious kind of restriction to not allow that to happen in Hong Kong. It's almost just turning a blind eye to what's going on. So I think it's really important that there are clear AML guidelines that can be followed. And you know, whether or not there's regulation, what we need is clarity, one way or the other, and fast answers on it. And it's hilarious that it's been pointed out to me that if you often ask a regulator like the SFC a question, they say, get legal advice. Well, if my law firm as a lawyer goes to the SFC and we say, oh, look, this area is really unclear, this says this, that says that, it's contradictory, they say, ask a lawyer. And I mean, we are a lawyer, we don't know the answer. So it's very difficult to find out. But I think when we talk about these kind of problems, we're perhaps thinking about things like FTX, which of course didn't happen in Hong Kong at all, but there was a big Hong Kong connection because Almeida, the sort of one half of what was the assets were being transferred back and forth, was in Hong Kong. And that's certainly figuring in the trial in New York at the moment. And to me, that whole FTX scandal was really just an old-fashioned fraud. It was very little to do with crypto. Perhaps it was exacerbated by how easy it is to move crypto and how little accountability there appeared to be. But really, that was just an old-fashioned fraud scheme of moving some people's assets into another scheme, rather like some Ponzi schemes have been in the past. So, yes, it's given the crypto world a bad name, wasn't really a crypto scandal. And then we've had JPEX in Hong Kong. And again, JPEX was really just, seems from what press reports we read, and I've got no inside information on this, to just be misrepresentation, because back in July, the SFC put on its website that JPEX was claiming that it was regulated in various jurisdictions as a crypto exchange, and the SFC was saying it wasn't. Then there were issues with retail people apparently getting their money out. JPEX was claiming it was regulated or applying for regulation because it had some correspondence with the SFC, which it leaked, and the SFC said, no, they weren't, this was misleading. It was promoting and getting various celebrities and so on to promote it, and claiming that it certainly had some aspiration about regulation, and that was clearly misleading. So that, again, that was just fraudulent. It could have been crypto, it could have been something else. It could have been selling handbags, and you could have had the same issue. So I also think that the JPEX issues were really a sign of Hong Kong's regulation working rather than not working, because the police have stepped in. That whole incident has resulted in the SFC and the police forming a joint task force to look at crypto, which is long overdue because there have been many crypto cases where crypto's been stolen out of wallets in Hong Kong and so on, and it's been quite difficult to get the police really up to speed with that, although they have tried. So I think that's all good developments and needs to continue quickly. So I do think people are coming into the real world, but this problem with the switching between the crypto universe and the fiat universe needs a lot more bridging put in place to make it really work and to bring crypto more into the mainstream.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much. Bosco, my question for you. What are the difficulties of using crypto for payments in real life? and how can it be improved?
Yeah, I think payment industry itself is one of the oldest industry in this world. It evolves over time, and in the past few years, we see the rise of FinTech. Some technologies that has not been used or like popular, say for example, QR code payments, using your mobile device to tap and pay, or you make your in-app purchases is not really there a few years back. So things will keep evolving again. And using blockchain, crypto, all this kind of technology is definitely the next wave because there are so many possibilities and advantages. You can transfer very little money using the blockchain to your friend in Australia, in UK, just a few seconds. And it's proof, you can prove it. Everything is on blockchain. So it's definitely coming. So, but the challenges is the accessibility, acceptance network, and also the use cases. People keep asking me like, okay, why I need to buy USDT? Or like, what is the use for BTC? So they still don't understand why is that needed. So I think education is also very important. So with the government doing more push in terms of helping the PropTech to have some good use cases, it definitely helps a lot to push the development of using crypto in different payment systems.
Just like to follow up on that. What do you see in the current Web3 world from a payment perspective?
We see lots of brands that we are familiar with start accepting crypto. Say, for example, Ferrari is recently accepting crypto as payment. Tesla is accepting Bitcoin. And some other brands are having that involvement in the areas. You heard Nike, Adidas, they have their NFTs and to engage their users, their fan base. And Starbucks is also accepting crypto as well. So it's more and more coming. And also recently, a few months ago, PayPal have their own stablecoin issue. So definitely is the use of payments. So I think it's getting more popular, and with the more use cases being developed, and more brands will be coming in.
Thank you so much, Bosco, for your insights. Jason, I'd like to move to you. From a traditional investor's point of view, do you think it makes sense to invest in the Web3 world now?
Yes. I've just entered the Web3 world as an investor. I think it makes sense for both short-term and long-term reasons. In the short term, obviously, we're in a bear market. Crypto, it's a very cyclical industry. We've got the Bitcoin halving coming up. We've got the anticipated bull run coming up. Macroeconomic conditions, they have a disproportionately large effect on Web3 ventures and their valuations. Valuations generally are quite low right now. That makes an interesting time to deploy. Obviously, Bitcoin and Ethereum have proven to be resilient, particularly recently. I've noticed some Web3 funds shift slightly away from speculative assets and more into basic infrastructure. That's normally a sign of market maturity, not suggesting that this is still a startup asset class. We're still very much in the Wild West. But if you combine all of those and coming from a TradFi background, there's something interesting there, right? Which brings me to the long term. Running a family office, I think holding digital assets is actually a bit of a hedge against the legacy financial system. And we've seen the growth of debt globally. We've seen bank failures happen again and again. So, I mean, some of my friends in TradFi space, family offices, they're like, look, it's really risky to go into digital assets. My answer is always, actually, I think it's riskier to sit on the sidelines and have 100% of your assets invested in the old system one of the most interesting things about Web3 is it's actually, in its own way, slightly reshaping the financial system. So wouldn't you want to have a little bit of skin in the game?
Very interesting. Okay, how about this? How should an investor look to enter the Web3 space, and using what approach?
Well, unless you're an investor or a family office who's made all of its money in crypto and that's your core discipline, I think you have to enter via a third-party specialist. It's a Web3 specialist. It's a very esoteric space. I'm getting used to the lingo. It kind of drives me nuts. But you know, as I said earlier, you know, my entry into the space is to back a fund, token-focused fund. Did a lot of research as to how Web3 funds operate and how they're different to funds that I'm used to seeing, how these crypto-native and crypto-focused managers work. I don't want to go off topic, but just in terms of my research, and I don't want to sound ageist here, but I do think there's a difference between crypto-native and crypto-focused. I think the crypto-native individuals, I don't want to sound ageist either, but they tend to be very young. They never really liked the fiat system. They've really warmed to this new financial system. The crypto-focused people, these are all super smart people, and they've had fantastic careers in traditional financial institutions, and again, they've warmed towards this new, economic system, and they have a core belief in Web3, and they're close to the space. They're close to its volatility in a way that I'm just not. You know, I'm too much in the old system, and I want to learn. So I do think as the space develops, I think the Goldmans, I think the BlackRocks of the world, they will develop their own specialist divisions. I think adjacent to that, we will see an emergence of a class of superstar Web3 specialist asset managers, and I only hope I'm backing one of them.
Well, finally, what is your opinion about using digital trust for your crypto?
I think it's a good idea for all the reasons you mentioned earlier. It's not something I've researched too much about, but coming from a family office, which has a trust structure, a fiduciary service, it offers that buffer. It's a layer of protection. It's a layer of security. And that's important no matter what you want to protect, whether it's fiat, whether it's digital, whether it's art. I think, obviously, crypto is something you can custody yourself, but a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. You might lose your password. So from a security perspective, it makes a lot of sense. I'd also say that, and this just seems intuitive, that you have to really do deep DD, deep due diligence into the digital trust provider, into the team behind it, and most importantly, I imagine, the regulatory regime that it falls under.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Eugene, what's your suggestion for those who want to set up a trust in Hong Kong to capture the digital trust trend?
Yeah, thank you, Kavi. Thank you. Well, the benefit of using trust, that Kavi, in your opening speech, you have already talked a lot. So my suggestion for the people who are considering to use digital trust, I think 2 layers. Number one, set up a trust for the benefit you mentioned, but before that, you need to ask yourself, what is your objective? Why you want to use trust? So that ties back to the benefit. A lot of my clients, they want to set up trust is actually for consolidating the assets for their family. Say, for example, if like the whole family have 10 people or 10 family members, I don't need to chop my asset into 10 shares, right? I can put everything into the trust and manage it in one go. Although legally I don't have the ownership, but I still can control the asset in the trust through the trustee or through all the trust constitutions or documents. So once you clear about what you want to achieve and whether trust is fit for your purposes, the next one about digital trust is like Jason, what you said. Do you trust the trustee or the trust company? whether they have securities, etc. In Hong Kong, being a trustee is actually a regulated activity. So you need to get a license from the Hong Kong government. So a trustee company in Hong Kong should be trustworthy. And thirdly, as a tax person, I can tell you the tax benefit of using trust in this part of the world is tiny. Because, well, number one, as Kavi, you have said, Hong Kong tax is actually quite low, quite friendly. And the Hong Kong taxation in wealth management or managing your asset is actually, well, there are simple ways to get around or to manage your wealth management in a tax efficient way. But in some of the jurisdictions, just like going north, mainland China, the taxation can be very different and can be very expensive in terms of transferring your own assets to your next generation. So using trust is also another reason or benefit of succession. Yeah, so I think you need to think about whether trust is really something that can help you to achieve your purpose or objective, and then get a professional advice, lawyer, accountant, as well as a trustee company to help you.
As a tax expert, and I've already explained earlier what the benefits of trust are, could you tell us what the reporting requirements and complications that may exist when we're talking about trust and setting up trusts?
Sure. We don't really, well, in Hong Kong, we don't really have a separate tax rules governing trust. So some of the people may think, well, once I transfer the asset or business into a trust, that's none of my business. But actually, the trust itself, in the name of the trustee, is actually carrying on the asset or carrying on the business or owning the asset. So the compliance obligation or tax-paying obligation aligned with the trustee. So don't think that, you don't need to do any reporting or compliance, but you actually outsource that to the trustee. I think that's the biggest sort of perception that we need to avoid. So I think, and also that's also some of the misconceptions that the people will have. So we need to bear in mind of that. And secondly, family office or family trust is a hot topic recently because the Hong Kong government is actually pushing this. Hong Kong as an asset management center, and also encouraging not only Hong Kong local family, but also the other the high net worth individuals or ultra high net worth individuals to come to Hong Kong to set up their family office. And there is a tax regime that a family office can be tax-free in Hong Kong. And there are some conditions, and I'm not going to go into the details, but digital asset is not yet within the qualifying asset of that family regime. So if you want to tap into the tax incentives, you may want to separate the digital asset in a separate structure, because just putting one unit digital asset into the family office, that could taint the whole thing and lose the tax benefit there.
Thank you, Eugene. I would like us to finish this off, but we're answering one question each. Well, one general question, but for all of you. And we'll start from Eugene, and we'll work our way down. What can people do to actually bridge the gap between the real world and the world of Web3?
So we are living in the real world, right? So the best way is, just like you, Jason, participate in the Web3, right? Try it, understand more, educate more, and also everyone can be an advocate. You can tell the government, well, what kind of regulations you want or what kind of support you want. I think the government will listen. So education, awareness, advocacy.
Yes, what Eugene said, just adding to that, yes, I think it's the easiest way is to actually view Web3 as an integral part of the real world and jumping on the learning curve, because the learning curve from Web 2 to Web 3 is a lot steeper than Web 1 to Web 2. You can do that directly. You can get tactile with some of its applications, set up a MetaMask wallet or buy an NFT. If if you're not from the world of Web3, read up on how your particular industry intersects with blockchain and Web3 in general. So, if you're in financial services, look at stablecoins and international settlements. If you're in real estate, look at tokenization of real estate or REITs. If you're in art, look at art NFTs, if that's something anyone actually wants to do right now.
Yeah, I think the most difficult part is how to start. So I would always suggest people to talk to your friends, companies or partners that they have experience in managing crypto or digital assets before, to start to learn from them, and then or maybe try it a bit yourself, as what Jason just mentioned. So it's a good way to start. But if the assets involved is too much, ask expert to help. It's very important.
I would agree with all of this. I think in particular it's very important. It's really important to just roll up your sleeves and set up your own wallets and set up your own accounts and have a heart attack nearly when you think you've forgotten your password and all of this kind of thing. And then you really understand why the idea of a digital trust seems like complete genius to me, because it takes some of that kind of pain out of the experience. But having said all of that, I think perhaps the other thing we could do is to look and understand some of the great Web3 companies we have in Hong Kong and really either invest in them or at least get to know them and understand them. And we do have quite a few in Hong Kong. For example, there's a world-leading a company called Scroll.io, which is one of 4 or 5 in its space in the world, and it's really a it's beyond a startup. It's more like a ramp up of a company which builds on top of Ether to create use cases. So you actually build on top of that, and it is really doing quite well in some extraordinary places that you wouldn't think of, like Nigeria. It's huge in Nigeria. And it's looking at where else in the world they're going to actually roll out next. And its other competitors are international companies, none of which are in this part of Asia. So I do think we have a lot of very interesting offerings in Hong Kong. And it's really important to support them and be part of them and be part of that conversation.
Thank you so much. 我哋再一次俾啲掌聲啦，我哋台上嘅幾位啊 Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please take your seats. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you all for joining us today for this event and our panel discussion. We have achieved so much in time, and we've been here and learned a lot as well. So now it's time for refreshment and networking, and our guests and our team will be here in the room to answer your questions if you have any, and please feel free to go to them and have a chat, okay? Thank you so much. So I know that I've enjoyed enormously today, and I hope you all enjoyed today as much as I did. Once again, thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you all again very soon. Thank you. Thank you.